You're listening to The Unstoppables, where each week we show you how to overcome obstacles and transform the sting of failure into the reward of growth. And now, here's your host, best-selling author, keynote speaker, and CEO, Bill Wooditch.
You're tuned into The Unstoppables, that undeniable space in the universe where you explore the minds, examine the habits, learn the fears and the failures and triumphs of the undaunted, the unstoppable achiever. Welcome, my friends. Today, my very special guest is Steve Baker. Steve's the Vice President of the Great Game of Business, Inc. and the co-author of Get in the Game, How to Create Rapid Financial Results and Lasting Cultural Change. Steve says when productivity and profitability suffer, business leaders often just order employees, you know what that feels like, to work harder, more efficiently. At best, Steve says, it's a short-term solution. But a better approach for motivating employees is to involve them in creating their own intensely focused improvement games that include a team goal, a way to keep score, and then, of course, a reward for winning. He believes that creating mind games with your teams can be a powerful motivator for improving employee productivity, efficiency, and morale. Steve, welcome to the show.
Bill, thanks for having me. This is an awesome opportunity, and I appreciate it very much.
Well, I think you've got a very, very important subject, and I think you have a different way of looking at the subject. And I think if, by way of background, if we start with a little bit of 30,000-foot perspective, a little bit about where you started, how you started, and then what you're doing now, we can dive into the entire meat of the talk.
Yeah, I think one thing I'd like to mention to the listeners is that right before this interview, you and I were talking about the original book, The Great Game of Business. It was published back in 1992 by Jack Stack and Bo Burlingham. In fact, he never figured anyone would ever read it. It was the story of how he and 12 other managers bought a dying division of International Harvester for a crazy sum of $8.9 million against $100,000 worth corporate buyout in American history. He learned one thing in his journey to get financing, and that was he was there to save 119 jobs, and the banks were there to collect interest, so 54 of them turned him down. But he learned their language, and that's what the Great Game of Business is all about. Is there's a universal language. It's the financials. They've been around for 500 years, since 1494, and haven't changed. We teach everyone in our businesses and everyone we work with how the financials work, how the company makes money and generates cash. And the biggest part of it is it's the axiom that we use is the company is the product. It's not the stuff you make. It's not the services you provide. You're trying to build a great company. So Jack just had a real issue with teaching great technicians like machinists and mechanics and engineers business, because they were technicians. They're like, I didn't go to school for this. I didn't train for this all my life. I don't want to be an accountant. And Jack said, well, look, we almost lost it all because International failed back in the 80s when they started in 1983. He said, we've got to learn it or else we'll never survive. So when you come to an SRC company, that's our parent company, including Great Game of Business, you can visit 2,000 people, a $650 million company. Every employee is taught the fundamentals.
You know, in 1992, I was just starting. I was a fledgling entrepreneur. I was sequestered in my study at home, trying to work on a business plan. It was just me. And I came across that book, and I thought, what bravado, what moxie, who would ever do that? And I thought, that sounds great, but I just don't know if I can do that.
Yeah.
Looking back, I wish I would have done it that way.
Yeah.
Looking back, you said two things, and I'm taking notes. And two really, I think, important things for us to look at and become aware of is that the universal language is financials in business. And that's important in many ways, one of which is how illiterate are we as a general rank and file employee or coworker or maybe, manager on the actual language of what the business is all about. And the business is all about, according to you, it's about the company. The company is the product. Those are, to me, those are epiphanies for me, especially the universal language in financials, because so many times we like to keep our coworkers in the dark, like mushrooms, correct?
Right.
Covered in, what. But those are two great points. In your book, and you can come back to both, but in your book, you talk about it's money, it's people, it's both. Would you please elaborate?
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate you letting me do that, because I get really passionate about this. The thing is, there are business operating systems that are very popular right now, and they're either focused on the cold hard numbers, right? The financials perhaps, but more likely OKRs and KPIs, the metrics. On the other side of the spectrum, you've got the folks like Google and Netflix and whatever, that are saying bean bags and nap rooms and bring your dog to work day. Well, those are both awesome, but if that's the spectrum, we're saying there's something in the middle. It is about the money, it is about the people, it's about both. So it's substance, it's soul, right? It's culture, it's cash, it's all that combined. And we believe that everyone can learn it if they're given a chance, and everybody wants to help when they can. They just probably haven't been given the opportunity or the education.
Yeah, I think we're, as a whole, we tend to veer toward what's the newest, what's the latest, and bringing your dog to work, as you said, and taking time, which I'm going to get bombarded by this work remote when we go back to actually work in an office that I pay a lot of money in terms of lease. But there's something in the middle, and you're hitting it. And another thing you write in your book that really caught my attention, that I would really appreciate if you would expound upon, is that business of business people, ownership in the business of business people. Explain what you mean, please, Steve.
Yeah, so, it's very easy to read Jack's original book about an engine remanufacturing company and say, oh, that works in manufacturing because it's all, you're in one place and you make stuff and widgets. Well, 85% of the people playing the great game of business today worldwide are service companies. That's the economy. So what I'm saying is, no matter what you do, if you focus on that idea of building a great company, we really need to teach people how business works, because if we just have a business of technicians, it's only as good as the last technician that leads. What we want to do is create a business of business people and processes around that, because processes outlast people. We need to make in my opinion anyway, a real good entrepreneur is looking at enriching a lot of people, because the more money everyone makes, the more money the entrepreneur makes, because we built a great company. I
really relate to what you're talking about with processes and process that will expand, will extend beyond the people, because even if someone retires, someone moves, whatever that could befall them, the process will last, and the process is the way. It's the culture, it's the system, it's the company. It is the way. And I've learned this, because if you're left to one individual or a number of individuals, you're going to be hamstrung by those individuals, and the process is part of the key. One thing I would ask you is to define this term, and I've learned this, Steve, I'm sure you have as well. You probably teach me a lot about this. But if I'm a little bit vague in what I'm saying, and most of the time, or all the time actually, the person that hears what I say is the person that sets the boundaries of what meaning is in the conversation. So what I'm going to ask you is, what does that word winning look like to you? Winning.
Well, I'm going to split it into two things. I'll split it into personal and professional, if I could do that, because what we deal with a lot is companies that have folks that have been just doing a job, right? They're dealing with stuff at home, right? So you got this wheel going, and they're trying to win at home, but it's tough. They need to make more money. So they go to work and they say, what do I do to make more money? And typically it's work harder, sell more, right? It's just, so the work wheel is turning. We try to integrate that and say, look, if you understand how money works, and Dave Ramsey, the personal financial guru, says money flows from people who do not understand it to people who do. Man, I'm telling you, when you remove the money conversation from things, winning takes on a different purpose, a different definition. Meaning, can we create something that will last a long time? Can we enrich a lot of people? Can we make it sustainable so that I can be here and perhaps I can, as you said, retire in a world that now believes you can't retire, that you better build your own nut, your own nest egg, that sort of thing, because retirement's a fallacy. The thing is, winning to me is being fulfilled, being healthy, being cared for, and having relationships. Right. So you see, I just took professional and personal apart and I stuck them back together in a different way. We believe if we can help people win at work, they will win more at home. And if they win more at home, they will win more in the community. So the basis of that, you hit on it earlier, is financial literacy. We are a nation of illiterates when it comes to finances, and that's proved out by, what is it, 14 trillion in consumer debt or something crazy. I mean, we don't understand it, and we need to teach people, and businesses now have become the new teachers.
Sounds to me like you're creating an environment to satisfy core human needs while giving a workplace, an environment in the workplace for the aspiration that can find meaningful work and a reward for that work.
Well, yeah, I mean, to me, work is just a misused word because it sounds hard and yucky and no one likes it and everybody's working for Friday. I like it when like my team, I love to work with my team because, especially now remote, we rejoin at 4 p.m. and we talk about our day and what we did, and everybody's so energized because we're helping people, and that is a huge deal. It doesn't matter if you make coffee for someone at a Starbucks, or if you're delivering a pizza, or if you're building engines. You're making someone else's life better. That's winning, and winning is at the very bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You mentioned it at the triangle or pyramid of universal human needs. Jack Stack discovered one below security, which is the bottom, right? And below free Wi-Fi. It's like, and it is, everybody likes to win. So why can't we make it a better opportunity? When I talk, I do a lot of speaking for folks like Inc. 5000 and that sort of thing. And when I'm in front of a big group of entrepreneurs, I'll say, look, you guys are winners already. You're going to create the win. Go back home and put yourself in their shoes, because they might be having trouble making rent. They might be having a bad relationship. Maybe one of their kids is in trouble at school. Life is hard. Let's treat them like adults instead of children. Let's have them help us create a win here at work. Man, I'm telling you, work to home to community, it's a direct link.
I think you get out of bed with that passion, and you can feel it. It's coming across through the airwaves. Yeah, you can feel that passion.
Let's change my life, Bill.
I think you come with that. I think that's part of your DNA. I also think it's part of your mindset, which is something that you can work through habit to possibly be aware of where it is and then maybe alter it in terms of trajectory. I think that would be my take on it anyway.
I totally agree.
MiniGames, how would a company structure MiniGames within the game?
So the big idea of the great game of business is that we all focus on a team goal. So the four tenets of the great game of business is there's a critical number, a common goal. We all work toward that. In order to win any game, because business is just like a game, right? You got to have that critical number, that team goal. Then we got to know and teach the rules. That means we have to understand the language of business, how we make money and generate cash. And this is where open book gets misunderstood, because we're known as the open book management people. Well, opening the books does not do anything. Transparency is useless without education. So you've got to take it on yourself. Businesses are the new educators. We have to teach our people all these things. How do we make money and generate cash? How do you connect to it? How can we influence it together? So that's where we go to the next tenet. We've got critical number, know and teach the rules, follow the action and keep score. This is where we forecast what is going to happen. In the beginning, you start out by saying, how do you think the month will end? People say, what, do you want me to be a fortune teller? I mean, a psychic? Say, no. Your job is not to predict the future. It is to influence it. So now we make it accessible and very approachable. Business is no longer mystical and controlled by people, in dark offices that say controller on the door. Now, I've touched on the big idea, what game are we in? And man, keeping score, because if you're not keeping score, it's just practice. Finally, what's in it for me? The stake in the outcome. And that's my favorite part, because that's where MiniGames live, bonus plans, recognition. We're an employee-owned company. My long-term play is ownership. I want my stock price to rise. But to answer your question, so MiniGames are a miniature version of that. And now is a really good time to be thinking about it because we're all working through a hailstorm of unknowables. When will the market come back? When can we open our doors, right? All these things that will happen. Right now, we need to say, what do we do in the next 90 days? So what if we were to say, we got to rejigger everything, guys. We may not hit our critical number for the year because of what's happening. For us, with factories, you can imagine the government is saying what's essential, not essential. If they say you're non-essential, doors are closed, what do you do? So we're actually working with everyone. We got MiniGames that range. I'll tell you some from the inside and the outside, because there's a lot of people doing this in the States. You've got at SRC, we've got people who are saying, we've got to move people. So in other words, if one division of our company is a little light, we move people over there, keep everybody employed. That's the big play. Can we keep jobs? And so they'll do things like, are we using our materials best? They'll do a mini game on material usage. I've got a caterer in Chicago. The city of Chicago and the state of Illinois shut down the hospitality industry. Just shut it down. A catering company, what are you going to do? And if I could tell you that story, I'm talking to Kevin this morning. He says, here's what our people did. First, we took fear out of the organization. We said, we're okay. We can do this. And this, by the way, is covered in our Black Swan action guide I'm going to give to the listeners at the end. Take fear out of the organization first. We're going to be okay. We're going to do everything we can to save jobs, but we might have to make some adjustments. People started coming to, we said, we got to take action now. They looked at their debt loads, at their potential AR. They're looking at any way that they can hang on to cash, because cash is really important now. And they said, what do you guys think we can do to help? Some people said, well, one thing is that, you know, everybody needs toilet paper. We can get it because we're in the food service industry. It just comes in cases of 9 million. So, you know, we can get it. Can we sell that? Can we do this? Can we do that? And what I love most is these poor kids who've been now shut out of school. Think about it. 80% of kids in the US, 80% are on free and reduced lunches. Did you know that?
No.
It's insanity. So if they're not at school, they're not getting food.
Right.
Well,
right. Wow.
Kevin and his catering company goes to the city of Chicago, says we can do that in what they call non-touched, individually wrapped food packets that they can distribute then to the kids in need. I mean, people were coming to Kevin with all their great ideas. One of them said, we'll take a 20% pay cut if it helps us all stay here and have hours. And Kevin was like, that's just amazing. I mean, they were volunteering to work harder, to work smarter, to work with less pay, knowing that 8 of his main competitors shut down completely, laid everyone off. And this is not permanent. It will come back. You believe that, don't you, Bill?
120%.
Yeah.
And again, you have me taking notes. One note I put as an aside, after the show, send me his phone number because I wanted to get some toilet paper. If he has that access to that goals, I want to be able to do that. What would you hit on? And it's, for me, it's a rhetorical question, but I want you to really nail this one for me. Fear. Fear is rampant in most companies. Fear is something that is inside of us. We deal with it by degree, by nature, our own. But why wouldn't I, as a company, why would I fear to implement something as transparent as what you're promoting and what you do and what you live?
Well, the first fear is always about losing control. If I let people know the numbers, man, you know, the whole place is going to fall apart. The second one is, what if they find out how much I make? They're going to want more. Well, they already want more. And a big lesson we teach is that it's hard to make money in business. The average company across 212 industries in the US anyway, the average profitability is 6.5 cents. The average employee, the research says, believes that you make 36 cents on the dollar. So you got a 6 times gap between reality and perception. So if you teach people,
that's fascinating. One more time. How much was it, 6 cents as an employer?
Is the average.
And our coworkers think we make 36 cents?
36. That's the research.
That explains it after 23 years. I got it.
Dude, it's so crazy because people, look, I'm looking at you and I say, here's a good looking guy, successful, you know, wearing a great suit, driving a great car.
You want a raise, don't you?
I do. Yeah. Give me more, boss. What do I need to do? The thing is that people could make all kinds of assumptions about how easy it is for you and how you didn't work hard for it. You know, it's just misinformation or a lack of information. So given full transparency, and I don't mean sharing facts, I'm talking about being open enough to teach people how they affect the financials and giving them a stake in the outcome in the form of, say, in MiniGames, as we say, we might be able to give self-funding rewards at 30, 60, 90 days. On the big game, for the whole year, if we hit our critical number, we're paying out quarterly as a % of salary. So the thing is, you aren't paying anything. It's money you didn't have before. So it's accretive to the value of the business as well as being accretive to the value of the individual. We build businesses and people. So if you talk about, let's face it, let's get the facts out there, take fear out of it, give people intelligence, because look, intelligence and action cure fear, right? So let's take action right now. In the crisis that we're in, we need to be focused on, are we talking to our suppliers, our vendors, our creditors? Be the first in line to talk to everybody, because you know what? This won't last forever. And when we're done with it, who do they want to do business with first? The person that communicated the most. So over communicate.
Intelligence and action cure fear. I love that.
That's cool, isn't it?
It makes complete rational sense to me in trying to understand an emotional reaction to things, which is fear.
Well, there's nothing more emotional now than the fact that, and you know, in this day and age where we go, in 2008, it was livelihoods. This is what a client of mine in DC talked, Liz Wilder with Anthony Wilder Design Build. She's out in Cabin John, Maryland. She said in 08, it was livelihoods. Now it's livelihoods and lives. Mm-hmm. So the first thing we got to do is make sure people know that they're going to be healthy and safe. So we're taking all precautions, right? Then we lay it out. They're going to be safe financially because we've planned for this. For folks who haven't, the big thing is lay out where you really are, and you'd be amazed at how your people will come together. And then, so we talked about taking the fear out, taking action. We've got to make sure that we're really communicating, over communicating with our people. In fact, Jack, every morning at 9 a.m., all of us can tune in. He's our working CEO. We can tune in to a meeting where all the presidents of all the divisions get together. They talk through, it's a huddle basically for everyone. And they talk about our cash position, what's going on in the companies, who's got wins to celebrate, who needs help. And every single day they do it at 9. At 1:30, all those same people get together to get ready for the next 9 a.m. call. In between, they're talking to legislators, talking to people on the Hill. They're talking to people in their industries. They're talking to their vendors, suppliers. Right now, we're talking about buying some of our suppliers because we have the cash. They don't. We need supply chain. What's this going to do in 5 years? It'll double our company. I mean, it's crazy, but I've learned so much from Jack Stack in the last 14 years that I've been here. It literally has changed my life. And now's a good time to tell you, I have an art degree. So if I can learn it, baby, anyone out there listening can learn it.
You co-authored the book. You're the art. So okay, you have the art degree, and the other author has the music degree, correct, or music background?
That's right. Yeah, he's a killer guitar player, and that's his passion. But the interesting thing is that if we can do it, you all can do it. That's for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned the word change, and Kahneman and Tversky have discovered that we're change averse and we're loss averse as people. And boy, are we going through both today. That sparks uncertainty. When we're uncertain, and we can make the philosophical argument that everything is uncertain, but to us, we need a little degree of certainty. So what you said about coming back is very strong, and it resonates, Steve. You've got to have a belief that it's coming back, and you've got to do what your friend's doing in Chicago. You have got to find a way or make a way to make things happen based on what you know, who you know, how you can ask those questions, and then find a way instead of sitting in a place of despair. I'm 120% with you. What a great time to have you on.
Oh, it's perfect. I mean, the thing is, I will tell you that I am an emotional person. You can probably tell that.
No, man, no. I thought you were just
a tissue. And so when anything happens, you know, the 08, 09 recession, when COVID actually, you know, hit the shores, you know, deep down, I'm still a child. So, you know, immediately I went to the emotional space of, oh my God, what are we going to do? Are we going to have any money? Oh my God, what about the kids? And, you know, so I had to calm that inner child, that inner freak out, and do what we do in business, which is take out the fear, you know, take action now. So that intelligence and that, because guess what? Who's looking at me? Not only our employees and team members, but also I'm the face of the company. So I've got people out in our other divisions, people in our community all around the country and even the world who are listening to us every Friday on this live stream. So the cool thing is knowing that we are working on it together. And Jack has a really cool saying from his first book, The Great Game of Business, which is pretty easy to stop one guy, pretty hard to stop 100. I love it. Because we're not alone, and everybody listening needs to know we're not going through this alone. We're all in it together. Everybody's dealing with the same stuff. So,
you know, I hope the audience is learning as much from you as I am learning from you, and you're sparking some ideas inside of me. I'm thinking about the other thing about fear. You talked about intelligence and action are the antidotes really for fear. And you think about the word, and I'm thinking about the draconian frame of the word controller. And how we think we control things, but really the best we could hope to do is influence. And the other thing is this: what does it say to that adversary or ally we have called ego? That we have to think we are in charge or have more information we can hoard from others. Therefore, we're perceived to be more valuable. It conforms with our overinflated ego. How do you deal with ego in your business endeavors?
well, I'll tell you what, and when you come to visit us someday, because Bill, I hope you do, and you want
I will.
Abilities, or visit a great game company, go out to Liz Wilder's place in Cabin John and sit in on a huddle when we're all allowed to leave our homes. What you find is leaders that are open to this idea really do have the ability to, I shouldn't say ability, they have humility, and they know they don't have all the answers. They're vulnerable. You know, they're saying, even though I'm in charge, I am still open to hear what people say, and they're interested in building the company rather than themselves. So I will tell you, out of everyone you've ever met in business, about 10% of them will do this, because you've got to deal with that. You've identified the biggest enemy of an open book or transparent organization, and that is ego, because you're going to see the lumps, the bumps, right? The pink underbelly of the whole thing. So what I love though is it's so freeing. Oh my gosh. So Inc. 5000 is the fastest growing companies in America, right? So I've met so many different personalities for over the years that I've worked with them. And what's amazing is they're all really cool. I love them, but there's a whole bunch out to enrich one person. And I can tell you, those are the folks who are coming to me looking at the next shiny object. And I'm going, this isn't for everybody. So let's ask a few questions, have a conversation very much like what we're having. And people will go, yeah, that's not going to happen. I don't want to explain. You know, there's a phrase. One of our coaches, Jack O'Reilly, says, I always look to see if there's a boat on the balance sheet. Isn't that awesome?
That's great.
So how do you deal with ego was the question. You got to look at, well, who is the authentic self? And that's very much a part of your questions that you ask, right? Is, are you being yourself? Are you truly authentic? Are you transparent enough? All those things are interwoven to me. So I love the question. And you know, it really does make me reflect myself on, I got a new book out. People ask me to come and they pay me, you know, to do keynotes and whatever. It's very easy for my big head to already get bigger. And so just reflecting on how Jack leads helps me bring that back down to earth. And if nothing else, my wife will be like I remember going, hey, look, I'm showing her a YouTube video. Here's Mark Cuban, and here's Colin Powell, and here's so-and-so, and all these people who speak at Inc. conferences. And I go, and look, who's this? And she goes, wait a minute, you do laundry around here. So I can always count on Joanne to keep me down to earth. You're right, planted firmly.
We need those people.
Hey, baby.
We do. Sure. Because life will humble you at some point. Better to get it early, right? You know,
yeah.
You get a Colin Powell, you get a great line, and it had to do with ego. It was so many great points, but one of his points was this. He said, be careful not to tie your self-worth or you know, ego with your position, because if the position falls, your ego and self-worth go with it. Now that's huge. And I got to tell you, there's two things as an aside before I jump into the book. Two things as an aside. You know, I started out from very meager, very, some would say poor background, but everybody that writes books and does what I do says they had a poor background, but we really did. And it's funny because people would come into my office about 10 years ago and say to me, did your dad give you this company? And I thought, you know, that's either an indictment of what you perceive to be my business acumen, or you think I look young. I'll take that. You think I still look young. So yeah, that's kind of what I do.
Where you can get it.
The how-tos of your book is at variance with the original book from Jack Stack, because there was a lot of, although there were some great ideas and concepts I remember, but you are actually giving something very important for the young fledgling, I say, entrepreneur or intrapreneur, that person working inside of a company as an entrepreneur, and that's how-tos.
Yes.
So if you tell me some how-tos in your book that would make me want to run and grab that book right now? I already have, but
well,
why would
thank you for
I
that.
do that?
Be sure and write a review, right?
Absolutely.
What the big idea behind Get in the Game is that way back in 1992, when Jack was asked to write the book, he told the publisher, no, I'm too busy running a company. And then they said, well, we'll give you $75,000 in advance. He says, when do you want the book? So he didn't really believe that anyone would ever read it. So he wrote it as a story of SRC. It was never intended to be a how to do the great game of business. So Rich and I have been working together for 14 years at the division of SRC, the great game of business that teaches and consults and helps others. So we decided this needs to be a book that we can share for posterity, and it's 10 steps, and it begin with the right leadership. So am I really the kind of leader that can lead well in an open book environment? Then we talk about the why, and the why is very popular right now with Simon Sinek's TED Talk being one of the most watched ever, right? And because people will work harder and smarter when they understand why the heck they get up in the morning. And most open book folks really have an emotional connection to their why. Maybe their father did sell them the business, or maybe they started with nothing and they've worked it up, or maybe they just want to help somebody else out because someone gave them a chance. A lot of really emotional, powerful whys. The third step is to open book and teach the numbers. That is one of our most popular chapters because it gives real tools. Each one of these chapters, in fact, the 10 steps, has a set of tools that go with them. Totally free. It's part of the book. And we have a resource site set up to deliver those to you. So that's where we open the books, teach people basically how they connect to the income statement in the beginning, just to help them get a little bit of education around how money works in a business. Then we talk about how to get to your critical number, then your drivers to that critical number, and then how to create mini games, which we've mentioned before, on how to start working on the drivers to the critical number. You see how it all connects? What we're really doing is building a system, an operating system within the business, so that you can not only work on it strategically, but while you're working on that with your executive or leadership or what we call a design team, everybody else in the organization can be running mini games and getting rewards as quickly as 30, 60, 90 days. But we're all headed to the same common goal, and that's that critical number. So far, so good?
So far, so great. How much literacy do you provide for your people? So what I say is transparency, literacy. They see all of the numbers, just their numbers.
Great question. I'm glad you asked it, Bill, because a lot of people hear open book and they go, oh my God, you know, it's a real butt tightener. So we got to go, okay, wait a second. Every number is represented, but not every number is perhaps granular. Like, we don't get out the chart of accounts and start going down this thing with everyone in the company. We're talking about basically, how do we bring money into the business? What are the costs associated with those promises to customers? And then we teach them revenue, COGS, gross margin, right? That simple thing. And then we teach them expenses. We take salaries, often salaries and benefits. That's a line, not individual salaries, because we think that's divisive. So what we really do is try to teach people, again, where do you fit on this income statement? So now, I mentioned that these financials are super old. In 1494, Luca Pacioli, a Franciscan friar, came up with this whole thing. The income statement and the balance sheet as they exist today are that old. What I'm telling you is that it's amazing. He missed one column. Instead of just having revenue and costs and margin and expenses and profit, you need another column that goes down to the side where someone's name can go, because somebody owns toilet paper, paper towels, shrink wrap, right? And someone owns, and let me tell you, you can get made fun of if you own paper towels and toilet paper until you run out of toilet paper.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
you know, sales guys own the revenue numbers, people, you know, running operations. I don't care if you're writing code or making widgets, somebody owns that billable hour, right? So put a name on the income statement. So that's how we do literacy, is we begin with what we call common sense financials. We're not trying to turn them into accountants, trying to turn them into business people.
The man or woman who's in their study now and they are determined to become an owner of a business, an entrepreneur, and there may be a difference we can parse, but they're going to start a business. Why should they buy your book? What would you teach them?
Well, one thing is, we don't get taught how business works. So believe me, we run into a lot of incubators right now where people are being taught you should go out and get as much funding as you can. And it is so wrong. It drives Jack Stack mad, because we're not teaching people the right way to do business. Why should they use my book? Because they need to understand how business works. And this is a 10-step process to get your operating system up and running. The worst thing you can do is start a business, then start hiring people, and you're going great guns. Then we hit one of these crises, right? A bump in the road economically, which is going to happen. It just happens. And you're going to lay everybody off. So your dream is going to be totally misguided if you don't start out with a good, solid foundation. That's my opinion.
Let me ask you for 3 steps: the first, the 5th, and the 10th. What are those steps? Or just 3 steps?
Yeah, to begin with the right leadership, you got to reflect on what you do. Are you ready for this journey? And what, you know, look at your start, stop, and continue list. You know, what should I stop right now? What should I start doing right now? What should I continue to do? And we give you tools to do that. The 5th step actually is to act on the right drivers. So that means identify the drivers to your critical number and then put MiniGames on, right?
That, my friend, is huge, because we often go off in the wrong direction, thinking we're a hammer and everything looks like a nail, when we're hammering the wrong pieces of wood at the wrong time. We're missing the drive. We're not working on those things that are most important to our success.
Yep, you can make money and still go out of business.
Yes. What's your last one?
The last one, step 10, is what we call sustain with high involvement planning. Now this, I'll tell you, is huge. It's really how Jack believes people should begin, which means you gather everyone together, everyone, and you say, here's the market you're in. You bring them all the data you can, and then you turn them loose. You say, what do you think we should do? And through a structured process that we do twice a year at SRC and at other high-level great game companies, we literally ask, it's high involvement, we ask our people to tell us, what is your confidence level in our sales plan and in our contingency plan? What are the big issues you think are happening in the next 6 to 12 months on finance, marketplace, people, and operations? We gather all that up, mash it up, and then we bring it back and try to sell it to them as if they were VC investors. And we say, what do you think? And if we don't get an 85 or above, we have to rejigger the plan. Now, why do we go to all that trouble, Bill? It's because people support what they help create. I'll say it again because that is a really great line. And
That's a takeaway right there. It's right down.
People support what they help create. So it doesn't matter. Use that mantra, whether it's to build your first sales plan, to run your first mini game, to pick your critical number, to set your bonus plan, because if you don't involve people at some level, it's still your number. And that isn't going to help you. You need it to be all of our numbers so we can hold one another accountable. Now that I've said all that, I want to say, look, we put it as step 10 because we believe you need an on-ramp to that system. And that's what this book is all about. Start simple, you know, give it 3 months, get into it, and then you'll start to go, why didn't I do this before? You mentioned that earlier about yourself. You said something that made me think of an old adage about when is the best time to plant a tree? Yeah. Well, 10 years ago, you know, so when's the second best time? Now. Something. Take action.
Steve, share. Yes, action. It was Frederick the Great. Audacity at all times, audacity, which is the same as action. And that's the only way. Is there a situation where mini games would not be effective?
Well, if they're designed incorrectly, yes, because sometimes we get excited, and as leaders, we'll jump in and say, hey, I went to this conference and saw this crazy person, Steve Baker, and this is what I came up with. We're all going to go out and make 100 calls a day. It's going to be amazing, right? Didn't involve any people. So People support what they help create. Mini games in particular right now are very much a subject of conversation because with the COVID-19 situation, everybody's business has changed. We have a lot of clients that have lost all their revenue, and we have a number of clients whose revenues have doubled. It's crazy. Both are problems, aren't they? So some people have come to us and said, should we stop the mini games we were in? And we rarely give this advice, but we say, you know what? Look at the business and the numbers will tell you everything. So if you need to pause that one, we can come back to it later. But your mini game right now should be getting everybody in the organization, and this is for everyone listening. Your mini game right now should be in the next 90 days. What do we do to generate and keep as much cash as possible? Because cash is king. So get everybody to understand, you know what, can we get longer terms with our suppliers? Can we get, I mean, heck, right now, let's take it to the personal side. Everybody that's listening, take action now. Call up your mortgage company. They will give you a 90-day forbearance for nothing, for free, no credit hit. Go to your banks, go to your credit cards, go to anybody that you need, go to your utility company. I'm telling you, they will all help you out, but you've got to conserve cash because that is the magic. That's what keeps jobs, that's what keeps your house, everything, right? So can mini games go wrong or can they be ineffective? It would be, first of all, design. Second of all, this black swan, right? Where you've got something that comes in like an economic recession, a pandemic, something you had no idea was coming, but it's here. So you got to deal with it. So mini games are a perfect way to take action. Just design them properly. And we give you all the tools that you need in the new book.
You just sharpened one of my most, I think it was probably a little bit too vague in my first book, Always Forward, when I was encouraging people to expect the unexpected. It's not quite as eloquent as a black swan, but I'm always thinking about those things that could go wrong and managing my worst case first. I can always manage upside. It's pretty easy for me to drive upside. I have to always look at those spots and I can't see them all. So I need people like my people or our people to help me with those. I'm writing down some notes, again, as a neophyte who's, I'm loving what you're saying. And I'm not patronizing you, I don't do that. But I'm looking at design for you, implementation, execution, and then I think iteration, where you can change things, repeat those things that don't work, and then adapt from there. So who's the person? Is it a committee? Is it down to a few people or the many who can say, this isn't working, someone hear me, it's not working, we need to change this? How does that voice get heard in this open book style of management?
Yeah, so first of all, very insightful to ask that question because there has to be a judge at some point, right? You got to make a decision. So what we start out with is what we call a design team, and that's usually a blend of people who would normally run the business, plus some people in other areas of the business who actually make the execution happen. They're responsible for designing the operating system or putting the game in place. Over time, you'll probably keep a leadership team like that anyway. That's just organic in the way we run businesses. But we might start a culture committee who's responsible for making sure mini games are being played regularly, making sure the huddles are happening, making sure forecasting is accurate. In other words, why does the boss have to do it? The more you push down knowledge and information and responsibility, along with accountability, the more you will rise as a leadership team, because the whole company is going to be smarter. And in the next 10 years, dude, it is all about people. I'm telling you, it has been for the last 5 or 10 anyway. No one can get anyone to do the job. So why are we not focusing right now on keeping people? Right now we're doing talent searches, Bill. That's what we're doing, because anyone who's laid off or afraid of being laid off, I want the best talent, because in a few months, when this thing hits, it's going to hit hard. And people will have their first cut is people. Ours is keep the people. What else can we cut? And we'll cut fat first, then muscle before we ever get to bone.
Same way. Same philosophy. We have not done anything with our people. Everybody's in place. Everyone gets paid. Same thing. But I want to bring out something very important you're talking about again today. It's so important. You're giving the tip of the spear to sales companies or any company. Now is the time to search. Get out there now.
Yeah.
Great tipping point right there. Let me ask you this, because you have this positive bounce and you have this enthusiasm, and I think you're extremely engaging. I would love to hear you speak. So you get this engagement about you, get this way, this presence. So how do you, as a person, not from a book, but how do you define success?
Well, for me, I kind of have a formula. I don't know that I've ever shared it with anyone publicly, but it's freedom. And freedom to me is
Did you read
you've
my
got.
book?
No,
Did you read
I
my
hate to
book?
say it, but I'm going to. But freedom to me is like an equation. It's like, can I share I just saw this on my calendar today. It is, there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. And what's amazing is that you go, okay, freedom to me is health and money, right? You got to have money to do that. And that all adds up to happiness. So there's a fulfillment part of that, because if I was doing this and I wasn't passionate, you wouldn't buy it. Your listeners wouldn't say, this guy's authentic, he's not real, I don't want it. And so I feel like I'm the luckiest guy in the world, because to me, success is something where I do it for free. Mm-hmm. Right. I don't tell Stack about this podcast, by the way, because I still want to get paid. But if I find something I can do, I would do for free, and that are changing lives like this has changed my life, man, that's amazing. So freedom to me is the ultimate expression. So then I can do the things I want to do, which is to make life better for my family, for my wife. You know, she's my critical number. That's what makes it work for me. So success, freedom. I hope that works, man.
You know what? When I was writing notes down, I was taking notes on ego, and I was going to share this with you off the air, but I'll share it with you now. Is for me, everything is about freedom. So I go as a reductionist. I work backwards from freedom of what gives me the most freedom in my life and the most balance. I remember getting off a plane, trying to take my one vacation in 10 years in Australia. So I've been working to the grind, and learning that, wait a minute, I'm still taking calls, closing these deals in Australia when I have people capable and who are paid to solve these problems and create these opportunities. And I thought, wait a minute, I have to change the dynamic. I have to stop thinking that I'm an owner. I'm not. I'm the one. They own me. I'm an employee. Number two, there is this illusion of ownership, right? And I have to find the right people, incentivize them, give them stock, part of me, make that whole thing transparent, and give me what I want, which is freedom. So I would give up the monetary and then enjoy what I think is most important in my life, and that is create those conditions where happiness can ensue. And that's what we do. We're in alignment.
It sounds like we need to be doing some stuff.
I'll tell you what, man, you're reading from my book because I read yours. The success is something that comes with risk. There's a reward, or sometimes there's a defeat, but you can learn from that defeat. So in your life, what do you consider, if you were just going to bring it down to one, what do you consider your biggest failure, and then what did you learn from it?
It's ignorance. I mean, flat out, it's ignorance. I mean, I went to art school because I wanted to. So one thing I've noticed about myself is, this just dogged determination and pig-headed discipline, but I didn't have the discipline in early life, right? At 18 years old, I could barely tie my shoes, but boy, I knew how to, I was going to move out of the house and go be art, and all this sort of thing. And it's still my passion. But the thing is, I wouldn't listen to anybody. My dad, the dedication in the book says, to my father, you were right. That's all I wrote about him, And
I saw that. I was going to ask you that. It's in your book. It's the last one.
Yeah.
The last one. I thought maybe it's too personal, but
you
said
no,
that
no.
you were right.
I'm happy to share it. It is. He was right about everything he said. He was an entrepreneur, a businessman. It was just I couldn't be him. You know what it's like. And as an older guy, I go, this is the best gift I ever gave him, was to say, you were right. And I've tried to emulate him for so many years now. But in those, you asked me, what is that obstacle or that thing? And it was my ignorance, my inability to listen to smart people. And I was lucky enough to be around some really smart people. So I took jobs where I worked at family-owned manufacturing companies. I was lucky enough to find my wife, Joanne. So if we were having a baby or trying to buy a house, I would go to the boss and say, what do I need to do to make more money? And they'd go, sell more. And so that's what I would do. And I would always be that performer to get to the highest level without having to marry someone's daughter, right? But I couldn't get past it until I got to SRC, went totally by accident, where the sky's the limit. And the whole thing comes down to, I was completely ignorant, and I was too stubborn to say to admit I didn't know it all. Does that make sense?
Not only does it make sense, but I've got two corollaries for that. You mentioned this throughout. It's really finding yourself, knowing yourself. And I learned this in Greek philosophy from Socrates, who at the Oracle of Delphi found, know thyself. And that implies that once you know yourself, you have to act in accordance with what you find. The other thing is this from Plato. They said, you're the wisest man in the land. How do you know so much? He said, I know that I don't know. And that is opening yourself to the possibility of what if in the future. I live by that. Live by that.
So perfect. That is so perfect.
If you were to have, or say there was a defining moment in your life, we've been through a number of, maybe it was your father's knowledge and maybe your epiphany of, wait a minute, I am ignorant, therefore now I'm aware so I can make changes. What was your defining moment that changed the trajectory of your career?
Oh, okay. So professionally, yeah, I mean, obviously I want to go back and say if I wouldn't have met Joanne, I mean, she saved my life. There's no question about it. But professionally, I remember exactly when it was because, look, I'm a good worker and I'm creative and I'm a problem solver and all that stuff. But I was with Jack Stack in Orlando, Florida at an event. It was like 1,000 business coaches were getting together. They asked him to keynote it, that sort of thing. And Jack likes Miller Lite. So afterwards, after the whole party and the hoopla and everything, he goes, let's go. And he walked me out to the golf course bar because there was no one there. He just wanted to get away, right? Just to have a minute to think. Starts drinking Miller Lite. And he goes, Baker, why aren't you doing that? I go, what do you mean? Why aren't you on the main stage? And the next year, he basically challenged me. Next year, I was at Inc. 5000, and now I'm the face of the company. So that was a moment where it was courage, but he challenged me. And so recently he said, Baker, what's one thing you can say about working here? And I said, well, I'll tell you something about you. What's that? And I said, well, you've successfully kept me out of my comfort zone for 14 years. And he didn't like that at first, but that's the secret, isn't it? To grow, you've got to be outside. So I wish I would have had that a little earlier where I was comfortable enough or courageous enough to say, I got to get out of my comfort zone because stagnation will kill you.
I write about that. I see it. I'm in the midst of a lot of it. Sometimes I can go through parts where I'm probably, maybe it's a self-indictment that I'm a little slower than I should be on some things. But what you just mentioned, stagnation is a death knell for the achiever, and comfort comes along with it. When we think we've arrived, we haven't, and we think we can rest on success, you know what? We can't. We always have to be moving forward. Life doesn't support stasis. We can't stay still and hermetically sealed and think that we can grow from that. We can't intellectually, emotionally, physically, or spiritually. We just can't do it. Yeah. I'm gonna have to wrap this. I hate to do it because I could have 3 parts with you, but I want to ask you this because you're doing something very important today for COVID-19. Tell me about what you've done, pivoting fast and creating a resource, Black Swan, so you can help us today navigate this terrible uncertainty.
So thank you for this opportunity. And this is going to be good for anybody that's listening now or later. What we did is we said, what would we want to have as a small to mid-sized business right now? So we created the Black Swan Action Guide, which contains all the things we talked about: taking fear out of the organization, take action now, know where your cash is, that sort of thing. Something you can do immediately. Also, I'm giving the book away for free to your listeners as a special gift. Thank you, Bill, for having me on. Get in the Game. Our hardcover book, we're giving it as an audio version, so you can download it at this site as well. 10 key steps for your business during a crisis. A special piece on taking fear out of the workplace. And now, this coming, this week, we have a cash calculator to help people actually figure out their cash position. So it's a ton of stuff, a ton of resources. You can find it at greatgame.com/crisis. So it's greatgame.com/crisis, and all the resources are there, including the audio book. And I invite everyone to come in and check it out.
It's tremendous. Where do we find you? Where we want a book, we can do it through that website. What other websites, where can we find you?
Oh gosh, you can find the book anywhere, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, etc. Get in the Game. By the way, Jack has a new book out called Change the Game, which is a nice partner piece. But anywhere books are sold, and then you can always check us out at greatgame.com.
I can't wait for this last question because it's the question I've been asking for, and it's probably to me the one that gets the best answers. Although you've been throwing stuff around like crazy, it's been an incredible knowledge trip. But I'm going to ask you this: your time on Earth has been fun and productive, and you've changed lives. I can tell you have, and you've had a lot of fun doing it with passion and enthusiasm. But now you're gone. what would you write? That one paragraph where you could give others some insight into who you were and what you would help and guide them on their journey forward, so they could maybe lessen the pain, shorten the distance from where they are to where they want to go. What would that paragraph look like as a walkaway for you?
Wow. Well, I think the first thing is don't give up. You could go back to Churchill, it's like every single thing that I've ever run into as an obstacle, I wanted to quit. And then I said, no, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to keep going. And that is the magic. I mean, you can plow through anything. Yeah, you should get resources and knowledge. Yes, yes, yes. But the thing is, when I see people quit, and this goes from little kids to adolescents, all the way, people like us, and then older people, when they quit, they literally die. There are people that so I've just made myself that promise is I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to let it get me down. There will always be something else. And I guess that's it, man. Just never, never, never give up.
You've been listening to The Unstoppables. Today's guest, it was incredible. Mr. Baker, you were phenomenal. I want to thank you very much for all of the information. I can't wait to hear this myself, play it back and listen to it. Fantastic, sir.
Thank you so much, Bill. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.